Class, settle down. Pens ready? Notebooks open? Right. Today's explainer is absolutely not a casual reading session, okay? We are tackling a direct 16-mark final exam question for your KSLU property law paper. Question 7. Explain the provisions relating to direction for accumulation of income under Section 17 of the Transfer of Property Act, 1882. I expect every single one of you to note down the structure of this explainer verbatim. If you want to secure those top marks from the KSLU evaluators, you have to approach this with absolute academic rigor. Let's get straight to it.
Here is your exact synopsis. 1. Introduction and meaning. 2. The general rule, Section 17. 3. Object and invalid directions. 4. Statutory exceptions. 5. Legal illustrations. And 6. Landmark case laws. You will write this precise agenda on the very first page of your answer script.
Moving to our first main heading. 1. Introduction and meaning.
The text clearly states the law regulates accumulation of income from property to prevent it from being tied up indefinitely. This is governed by Section 17 of the Transfer of Property Act 1882. Listen, establishing this statutory foundation is completely non-negotiable for passing. You simply cannot start discussing rules without citing the specific section of the bare act. Section 17 is your anchor here. If you omit the section number or the year 1882, you are literally throwing marks away. Make sure it's bold and clear.
Let's define our terms. Direction for accumulation is a provision in a transfer that income arising from property should be accumulated, meaning saved, instead of being spent or distributed. Listen to me carefully on this point. You must clearly dissect the conceptual difference between accumulating and spending for the examiner. Accumulation isn't just a casual savings account. It is a continuous, deliberate process of hoarding the profits, the rents, or the interest of a property, completely cutting off the present enjoyment of that income. Providing this conceptual clarity right at the beginning, that is exactly how you secure those crucial early marks.
Next heading. 2. The general rule, Section 17.
The general rule dictates that accumulation is valid only for a limited period. That period is the life of the transferor or 18 years from the date of transfer. Any direction beyond this period is void to that extent. Note down every single word of this on your page. See that word or? It's a crucial distinction. These are alternate statutory limits, not cumulative ones. The accumulator can choose the life of the transfer or 18 years. And I'm warning you right now, class, if you fail to write the caveat to that extent in parentheses for void directions, the evaluator will penalize you. The law doesn't strike down the entire transfer, it only strikes down the excess accumulation. Precision matters immensely here.
Moving along to heading 3. 3. Object and invalid directions.
Object of the rule. It prevents indefinite hoarding of income. It ensures free use and circulation of property, and it protects public interest. Now you need to dissect each of these points in your answer. Think about it. Indefinite hoarding severely damages the Indian economy. Property is wealth, and wealth absolutely must circulate. If every single landowner simply locked up their rental income in an untouchable vault for 100 years, well, the local economy would starve, wouldn't it? The rule against accumulation, much like the rule against perpetuity, is a matter of strict public policy. You must explain to the evaluator that the law simply abhors stagnant property.
Effect of invalid direction. Excess accumulation is void. Income must be applied as if no such direction exists. Pay very close attention to the legal mechanism operating here. Say a wealthy transferor directs income to be accumulated for 25 years. The property itself is not destroyed. The transfer isn't fully void. Rather, the court steps in with a surgical scalpel. After the permitted 18 years, the excess restriction, that remaining 7 years, is simply struck down. The income is then legally freed and applied exactly as if that restrictive direction never existed in the first place.
Heading 4. 4. Statutory exceptions.
Exceptions to the rule. Number 1. Payment of debts of transfer. 2. Provision for portions of children, for example, marriage or advancement. 3. Preservation or maintenance of property. And 4. Charitable or religious purposes. Now the law is strict, yes, but it is not blind. It forgives property accumulation for these 4 specific socially beneficial reasons. Let's break them down. First, if a man saves income to pay off his honest debts, well, the law supports him. Second, if a parent sets aside a portion of income to fund their child's marriage or higher education, public policy favors that preparation. Third, if funds are accumulated to physically preserve a crumbling heritage estate, it makes practical economic sense. And fourth, for religious or charitable endowments, the strict time frame is completely relaxed. You must elaborate on each of these 4 exceptions strictly in your exam.
Moving to heading 5. 5. Legal illustrations.
Look at this comparison. On the left, income of property to be accumulated for 25 years becomes void after 18 years. But on the right, income to be accumulated for children's education is valid. Compare how the absolute 18-year rule strikes down the left scenario exactly at the 18-year mark, releasing those funds for the final 7 years. Meanwhile, the scenario on the right is completely saved by the statutory exception for children's advancement. Drawing a clean, side-by-side comparison like this on your paper shows the examiner that you don't just memorize, you truly understand the mechanics of Section 17. Finally, heading 6. 6. Landmark case laws.
The Thellison versus Woodford. This is the famous case leading to restrictions on accumulation. Pick up your pens right now and draw a prominent box around this exact case name on your paper. This is the absolute genesis of this legal doctrine, and the facts are truly fascinating. An eccentric millionaire, Peter Thellison, made a will directing that the massive income from his estates be accumulated during the lives of all his sons and grandsons living at the time of his death. Only upon the death of the absolute last survivor would this colossal accumulated fortune go to a distant descendant. Now, shockingly, the common law actually upheld this absurdity. But the resulting public outcry over such a massive stagnation of wealth caused the British Parliament to panic. They immediately passed the Accumulations Act of 1800, which is historically known as the Thellison Act. Citing this specific Genesis case proves your historical mastery of the law to the evaluator. It tells them unequivocally that you know exactly why Section 17 exists.
Ramanathan Chettiar versus Kumarappa Chettiar. This case applied principles of valid accumulation under Indian law. Write this down and vigorously underline the ratio. This case is your definitive bridge proving how the English restriction operates within our Indian legal system. In this landmark Madras High Court case, the court had to evaluate a direction to accumulate income within a trust. The judges meticulously dissected whether the accumulation was for an indefinite private purpose, which would be void, or if it fell squarely within the protected exceptions, like religious charity or maintenance. The final ratio decidendi firmly established that Indian courts will rigorously enforce the boundaries of Section 17, striking down private accumulations that exceed statutory limits while simultaneously shielding valid charitable intents. Write this case law in a separate boxed format to immediately capture the KSU evaluator's attention for a 16-mark answer. It shows you understand the Indian application perfectly.
Now for our concluding thought. Quote, "The law permits accumulation of income only within reasonable limits. Any excessive restriction is void, ensuring that property remains productive and beneficial to society." Dictate this exact quote slowly onto your paper. I want you to frame it as the mandatory, high-impact concluding paragraph that you must write at the very end of your KSLU answer script. Never let your answer simply trail off into nothing. Always conclude with a strong, definitive summary of the legal intent.
If Section 17 did not void excessive accumulation, how quickly would the circulation of property completely stagnate in our society? End your answer, and indeed this academic explainer, with this provocative conceptual question. I challenge you, as future lawyers, to deeply ponder the socio-economic weight behind the Transfer of Property Act. The law is not just a dry set of rules, it is the vital machinery that keeps our society and our economy moving. Study hard, format your answers precisely as we discussed, and I will see you in the next class.